In this video, we're going to talk about HTML practices you need to follow to write excellent markup for production websites and web applications. There are 3 reasons that you want to care about this as a web developer. 1. This will help you pass front-end interviews with flying colors. 2. Co-workers will respect you and see you as a HTML expert on the team. And 3. You'll be better at your job because the websites and applications you build will have fewer bugs in production. So without further ado, let's start the clock and go. Best practice number 1 is use semantic markup. Semantic markup is the use of markup language such as HTML to convey information about the meaning of each element in a document through proper selection of markup elements, and to maintain complete separation between the markup and the visual presentation of the element contained in the document. You should always use HTML tags that convey the meaning of the element you are building. Here's an example of code that is all sorts of wrong. But what's wrong with it? If you look closely, it is using a div tag for the heading. Instead, it should be using h1, h2, h3, or some other heading tag. Next, you will see that the code continues to use div tags for text below. Again, based on the semantic markup principle, a better suited tag would be the p tag, which is a tag describing a paragraph. Continuing on, the code seems to use the div tag for the clickable button. That's not a good idea. Instead, it should also use a button tag. Not only the button tag is more meaningful, it also comes with built-in accessibility features such as focus highlighting. Screen readers also treat button tags differently, and it is another big reason to use them. Lastly, you can see that the entire markup seems to describe some kind of a form. So we should replace the root div tag with a form tag. We should also add a type submit attribute to the button. Not only is the code now more meaningful, but by using the form tag, you can now submit the form with an enter key press. Developer.mozilla.org has a full list of all HTML tags and their intended meanings. Don't worry, you're not expected to memorize all of them tomorrow. However, the more markup tags you know, the better you will be as a web developer. Now, best practice number 2 is to minimize the amount of HTML in your web application. I see too many websites that don't care about the amount of HTML they make their users download. And this is a common sign that there is an unnecessary amount of div nesting to achieve some kind of layout or styling. Very often, you can reduce the amount of HTML tags and CSS attributes and still achieve the same design. Now, if this bad practice is not monitored, the HTML code will eventually turn into a gigantic mess of nested tags that none of your teammates will be able to comfortably change. So, if you catch yourself or your teammate doing this, please stop and put some effort into optimizing your HTML. So this is both good practice for you and for the team. Best practice number 3 is avoid inline CSS styles. Inline CSS styles means writing CSS styling rules right inside the HTML tag with the style attribute. Well, just like real life, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And this is true for inline CSS. There are a few good reasons why you should avoid this bad practice. First, it violates the principle of separation of concerns, which states that your HTML markup should be separate from how it is styled. Second, if you literally inline every style on your page, it might cause performance degradation because the web application HTML output becomes unnecessarily big. You may even get a warning from your performance testing tool indicating that your content is too large. Lastly, if you inline all the styles, you won't be able to reuse styles in your web application. This is a big problem if you work in a team of multiple developers because Your teammates might end up reinventing the same wheel instead of reusing the common CSS styles. Best practice number 4 is avoid inline JavaScript. Here's an example of HTML with inline JavaScript. Inline JavaScript means writing JavaScript inside your HTML file. Similar to CSS, it is considered a bad practice. So, why is inline JavaScript a bad practice? First, it again violates the principle of separation of concerns. The HTML and/or CSS file should ideally contain only the presentation, and separate files should be used for scripts. That makes it easier for you and of course your peers to read and maintain both the visual and functional aspects. Secondly, it cannot be cached. Caches save our clients resources and our web page loads faster. If you inline too much JavaScript in your index page, your user will end up downloading all the code each time they load the page. If it is in a separate file, the browser will have the opportunity to retrieve the file from the cache before attempting to download over the network. Lastly, some websites prevent executing of inline JavaScript via CSP rules. It's possible to disable the execution of inline JavaScript in modern browsers via the content security policy. This reduces the risk of your site falling victim of XSS, but this also means that you cannot use inline CSS JavaScripts. So, as the best practice states, do not inline JavaScript. There's almost never a good time to do that, so don't. Best practice number 5 is carefully order the loading and execution of your script tags. When a user requests a page from a website, the HTML starts streaming to the browser. As soon as the browser encounters a tag for an external image, script, CSS file, etc., it will start downloading the file simultaneously. That means the browser might be blocked from being able to pass on the HTML while the script is being downloaded. If we creatively use async or differ attributes or put our script at the bottom of a page, your page will appear to load faster. In the old days, it has been considered a best practice to put JavaScript script tags just before the closing body tag. The reason for this is that HTML loads from top to bottom. Images placed below the script tag will wait to load until the JS script loads. By placing the script tag at the bottom, you load images first, giving the appearance of a faster page load. If you absolutely must have an external script at the beginning or middle of your content, please consider async or differ attributes. With async, the file gets downloaded asynchronously and then executed as soon as it is downloaded. With differ, the file gets downloaded asynchronously but executed only when the document parsing is completed. Defer scripts are generated to be executed in the order they occur in the page. Async executes at the first opportunity. Defer executes at the same order you define it. Both async and defer will load asynchronously, allowing the rest of the HTML to continue parsing. Best practice number 6, compress that HTML. Okay, so this is another principle that aims to minimize the HTML output so that your user can download the website much faster. HTML compression tools will save space in our HTML files and make them much smaller by doing the following. Remove text line breaks from the code. Remove tabs, replacing double spaces with single spaces. Of course, this is not something you want a human to do. There are tools and plugins that do that for you. The first way to compress HTML is using online tools. One of them is available on minifycode.com. The way it works is you copy and paste the HTML you want to minify, and you tell the tool to minify it. Then you copy the compressed output into the actual website. While online tools exist, they require you to manually put your code into them, which is not ideal. That's why you should use HTML pre-processing plugins for Gulp or Webpack. If you're using Gulp, look into Gulpmify. And if you're using Webpack in your web application, there's a handy HTML Minimizer Webpack plugin. They all do the same thing, minimize your HTML. Best practice number 7 is to validate your HTML. Now, validating a web page is a process of ensuring that it conforms to the norms or standard defined by the World Wide Web Consortium, which is the authority to maintain HTML standards. For beginners, it is common to make a mistake in writing HTML code. Incorrect or non-standard code may cause unexpected results in how your page is displayed or functions in browsers. So to prevent this, we can validate HTML code against the formal guidelines and standards set by the Wide Web Consortium for HTML and/or XHTML web pages. The World Wide Web Consortium provides a simple online tool that will automatically check your HTML code and point out any problems or errors your code might have, such as missing closing tags or missing quotes around attributes. You can click on the link in the video to go to the website. Best practice number 8 is to format your HTML code. There is nothing worse than opening a HTML and seeing badly indented code. Here's an example of badly indented HTML. Now, you can configure most IDEs to follow the HTML format that your team wants to follow. This includes things like indentation of tabs or spaces, capitalization for HTML as you always use lowercase, trailing white space handling excessive comments, etc. IDE can also automatically detect problems in your HTML and suggest improvements. Now, setting up formatting rules in IDE also prevents unnecessary code styling debates in the team. And believe me, everyone has his or her preferences, which makes configuration files with formatting rules even more necessary. Best practice number 9 is to use title and meta tags appropriately. The title tag defines the title of the document. You usually place it inside a head tag, and its purpose is to describe what the document is about. The contents of a page title is very important for search engine optimization, SEO for short. The page title is used by search engine algorithms to decide what the page is about and who is listed in the search results, hierarchy-wise. Even if you don't care about SEO, this is useful for your users too. The text in the title tag will appear at the top of your browser tab, making it easier for the user to know that he or she is in the right place. The meta tag defines metadata about the HTML document. The meaning of the word meta tag is information about data. Meta tags always go inside the head element and are typically used to specify character set, page description, keywords, author of the document, and viewport settings. Metadata will not be displayed on the page, but is machine passable and is used 1. by browsers to decide how to display content or reload pages, and 2. by search engines to decide by which keyword to rank the web page. Best practice number 10 is omit optimal HTML tags. Did you know that HTML elements end tag may be omitted if the HTML element is not immediately followed by a comment? A head element start tag may be omitted if the element is empty, or if the first thing inside the head element is an element. Yep, there are weird rules like that, but they are actually part of the official spec. You can find specs about the tags that can be omitted on html.spec.whatwg.org. You should omit optimal tags. For file size optimization and scannability purposes, consider omitting optimal tags. The HTML5 specification defines what tags can be omitted. Now, this approach may require a grace period to be established as a wider guideline, as it's significantly different from web developers are typically taught. For consistency and simplicity reasons, it's best served omitting all optional tags, not just a selection. Thanks for watching.
If you like the content we're providing,
Please like and subscribe to help us grow the channel. Thank you.